in our go, go, go world, there's a lot of people who think that you just need to hustle. You need to sleep on the floor of your plant. You need to make sure that you've got a bed in your office, and you got to go, 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 go. Well, I'm here to tell you that hustle culture is a scam. We're going to talk about that right now.
Hey, welcome back to another Blunt Force Business. I'm Brian LaFauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
And today we're going to talk about hustle culture being a scam.
It's a scam, man.
Well, I guess. I feel a little hypocritical, doing this podcast because
you sleep in this office?
No, I don't. But, you can't deny that there is a place for the concept of working hard.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We can't deny that.
Right.
But I think we're going to take our listeners in the right direction here.
Right.
With, what's a good way to say it? Providing structure to the hustle.
Right, and also having goals versus just the goal being thinking that if I'm working hard and I'm putting in the hours that's going to get me somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think the really good lesson is when you look at if you look at the working class, right? I mean, that's the whole thing is there's a lot of people out there who are putting in a ton of hours, working multiple jobs. If you're working multiple jobs, putting in a ton of hours at minimum wage, you might not necessarily get anywhere, right? Your hours have to be worth something. Your hours have to be productive. You have to actually be doing something in your hours, not just working. That's not the point.
Yeah, and I think a lot about the David Goggins followers when I think about this topic, right? David Goggins is out there, and when you listen to 90% of it, I'm working harder than you, I'm doing this, and I think, he's had some great success with it, but I feel pretty confident in saying that I think he's had some great success with a sacrifice of some really important things in life,
right?
And relationships. And I remember when I read his book, the first one, obviously very impressed by what he did, but one of the things that stuck out to me about it, and he talks about in the book, is what he felt, he was a little separated from the group when he went through some of his special forces training. And for those of you that haven't followed David Goggins, I do recommend doing so. I think there's a lot of great stuff that he puts out there, but it really stuck out with me in that to me was the epitome of what you don't want to do in special forces training is kind of go it alone, right? It's all about team and I think sometimes working so hard, now you separate yourself from all the other things in life, which kind of brings us to our first blunt force fact of the day, which is...
What is it?
Hustle doesn't equal productivity.
Oh, okay.
Blunt
Hustle
force fact
doesn't
number
equal
one.
productivity.
Hustle does not equal productivity.
Right. And I think, again, I go back to this idea of, we've got these people who are in the, the quote-unquote working class who are working hourly jobs where, they could work as many jobs as they want. That doesn't mean they're going to get farther up in their career. It doesn't mean they're going to make more money. It just means that they're going to work harder. Right? It just means they're going to work more hours. And I think the same thing for us, for the entrepreneur, it's the exact same thing. It's like your hours have to equal something, right? And just working more hours doesn't mean that there's going to be an output, right? There always has to be a goal. There has to be a strategy, right? There has to be something at the end of the work that you've produced, right? A better product or better ideas or more efficiencies for your company, right? And if you don't do that, then you're wasting your time.
There's plenty of people that are working really hard,
right,
out there, really, really hard, and not getting, the term getting ahead. Right. They're not getting ahead.
Right.
And they're just working hard. And I think that's the trap you can fall into with this hustle culture.
Right.
Is, it preaches this concept that, yeah, just fucking go work hard. Just work hard. You're not where you want to be because you're not working hard.
Or you read stories or you listen to Elon Musk, who's like, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to be sleeping on the factory floor.
Yeah.
Right. That's something he really, really believes in. And I think there's two lessons that we can learn from that. One is you're not Elon Musk. Right. Some people are just built differently. I'm not Elon Musk.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And number two is you don't have to be the richest man in the world. I mean, maybe you do, but most of us aren't going to be doing that, right?
And that might not be where our end goal is.
Well, that's what I
anyways.
mean. That's what I'm talking about. So it's like, if your goal is not to conquer the world, then why are you putting in all those hours? Like, I mean, like, seriously, like your goal is to, what's your goal, right? Improve your business, grow your business, provide for your family, right? And by having those goals now, it's like, what are the hours that it's going to take me to get there?
Make
So
an impact, right? I'm sure it's a lot of our clients.
Or, it's talk to death, work smarter, not harder.
Yep.
Right? Because if I can be more efficient with my hours, that gives me more time off, right? More time to be with my kid, more time to focus on other aspects of the business, right? So if I can make each hour better, then I feel like I'm doing a better job than if I'm just putting in more hours.
And so how do you do that? Now you're starting up. Let's say you're starting up, or you're in a growth model, right? As we're well aware, we're working on our weekly growth call with our clients. We're right about to jump in to our 6-week growth-based end the year strong program, right? So that's going to take time, right? We're doing that. Our listeners on the call are doing that. So it takes time. But what do we want to do? So when we're working hard, we want to be working hard at implementing systems towards a goal where we're not working hard. So one of the ways that I like to advise my clients to do that is, as you take on new work or new programming, structure the projections around that for the billing of it, for everything, as if you're not doing it. Someone else is going to do it, right? So you're going to have to hire. So if you structure a lot of the growth-based work in a way where I'm setting it up so that if I get that contract, someone else is administering it, not me, right? Now I'm kind of setting things in play so I can grow and reclaim some of my time. We have we did a whole podcast on automations and we'll do more on that stuff. Those systems are the same kind of things. If you're working hard, don't just be working hard at like grinding out the work that you have to produce.
Right.
You need to have a percentage of your time devoted to grinding out the work. You absolutely have to have a percentage of your time devoted to grinding out the systems that will make you not have to do as much work.
Right. To me, the things that rung out when you were speaking was not just that. I mean, like I know my goal is to get to the point where I am making a lot more money for very, very few hours.
I think that's all our listeners.
Right. Oh, I don't think that's everybody's goal. I don't think everybody thinks that way. I think that people should think that way, but I don't think that's the way everybody thinks. But I think that the things that rung true when you were speaking in particular was structure and goal. Right. And to me, that's what this is all about. Productivity is making sure that you have a goal in mind and then building a structure to meet that goal so that all of your hours are helping you get there. Because I think what happens is people just think they're going to work, and they haven't really thought through what the point is.
Right.
It's like, I want my business to improve. I don't even know really what my business is yet. That makes it harder. But I think that you have to have a goal in mind. Like one of the things that I've done in the past is we worked with health influencers, health and wellness influencers, and there was one in particular who's absolutely crushing it. And at the beginning, his goal for like number of followers that he thought would help him was just way too big, right? It was just way too big, and it was way too. It would have taken a very, very long time to get there. And I think that initially that was fine. It's like it's like, okay, well, yeah, I know it's going to take a long time to get there, but the problem is it's too big, too much. By systematizing it and by making it, okay, I got to get to this point first. Then he reached that point, and it made getting to the ultimate goal stronger. So when you set yourself goals, you automatically, and this is like you probably know this better than I do, it's like a psychological thing, right? It's like as soon as you define the goal, they call it SMART goals, where they're measurable, and you can create a system around it. And that gives you actually something that you can achieve. And then when you achieve it, that gives you the motivation to get to the next point. And I think that helps with what we're talking about, because then you're not just putting hours and hours and hours to no end. By having an end, now you're producing something, right? And it's not just hustle for the point. It's you're working to create something or reach something. And then what you do, you can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and it's a mindset.
Yep.
So for our listeners, we really recommend the mindset of, as you're hustling, as you're growing, hustle towards a system that allows you to grow. It allows you to be able to step back. Don't just hustle towards a production, because if you just do that, you're going to be doing it forever and ever. Amen.
Have a goal and produce something, right? And value your hour, right? And a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, there's no value on your hour. It's like, if I want to make X amount of money and I have to work, how many hours a week do I have, right? I mean, if I'm working 24 hours a day with no sleep, you could even start with that. But then you think, okay, how much money do I have to make? Work backwards. Like if the amount of money is $1 million in a year, then each hour has to be worth several $100s, maybe more than that, right? And so like if you're not making that much money in those hours, then you're never going to get to the goal.
Yep.
So work backwards, value your hour, right? And that will help you become more productive as well.
And in a future podcast, along the concept of working backwards, if you're just starting out, you should be starting out knowing what you want to exit with. Like realistically, at this age, at this time, I want to be able to sell this thing I'm growing for X, because then you really back into that. I mean, that's a long conversation for another time,
Yeah,
but that's what to hustle towards, right?
Yep.
Hustle towards the end, because this will be your retirement, what you're working on right now. So hustle culture is a scam. Blunt force fact number 1, don't just hustle. Hustle doesn't equal productivity. Hustling with a plan equals productivity.
Got it.
Which brings us into blunt force fact number 2, which we talked about a little bit to start off, which is that work-life balance is essential.
Right. And we are part of our Blunt Force business brand is we also talk about fatherhood and health and wellness. Right. And we believe in that as like kind of like what's the point of life versus like what's the point of your business. Right. And so the point of business is to enjoy your life, to have some enjoyment of it, to set yourself up and your family up for the future. And you have to have balance. And if you're not enjoying that, then what are you doing, right? It's like if you, especially like when you have kids, because you blink and they're a year older and they're a foot taller, right? And it's like if you're just constantly involved in the hustle, then you miss out on really these things that are so enjoyable in life.
Yeah, and they say to each his own, and everybody, and so I'm well aware that this sort of concept for some people will be a turnoff. Mm-hmm. And I know people that work a lot of hours and spend a lot of time away from their families, and they have an explanation for it that works for them. Like they feel like this is their way of being a provider. I disagree with that. Doesn't mean we're not friends or we don't but I disagree with that philosophy, and I believe that the balance of the other things in your life are equally as important as this thing we're driving towards and working, and in a lot of cases more important, right? And I always relate it to health. The minute, what do you see everybody do when there's a health issue comes up? They suck back into their close-knit circle, their family, close friends, and they take time off of work, right? Like, so when life says to you, hey, we're gonna question your time left here on Earth, what do people naturally do? And I think there's a lot to be said for what people naturally do, right? If I don't know anyone, or very few people, or no, I don't think I know anyone, that someone said to them, hey, listen, I have bad news for you, bad medical news for you. And they're like, oh, well, let me get to work tomorrow, right? Because I want to, right? So as much as there is joy, and a lot of times when companies start doing well or people start doing well growing their company, there is so much satisfaction from that. It's like a drug.
Right.
It is absolutely a drug, and it feels so good because look at this thing I'm doing and creating, and how amazing it is, and people are giving me their hard-earned money for this, and I'm acquiring all this wealth from it, and praise, and it's like being on stage. Right. It really is. It equates to being on stage, I think. And it can be very easy to want to step into that. And, sometimes when you go home and you're back with the family, sometimes there's family conflict that comes up, or, and you got to deal, and it might not feel as good in certain moments, to be in that space and be like, we've all heard that, well, I'm just going to go to work. And it's easy to justify that as an entrepreneur when you say, well, yeah, I don't want to. But, you might not even realize you're enjoying being there more than you are. So it's, that hustle culture will suck you in because you're doing this thing, you get a lot of satisfaction from it. You might not even realize what you're leaving behind by not having that balance.
Right. And also, I think that it's the not realizing part. I mean, one of the things you did talk about as well is not just, you're like, okay, you have the health scare and you're surrounded by your friends and family. Well, what have you been hustling so hard that you don't have any friends and family left? I think that happens a lot, right? If you look at like really successful business people whose family life is a complete and utter sham because they did not have that balance, because they push people away. And now it's like, okay, well, what if I get to the point where I need that because the business fails or because I'm old and sick, right? And I don't have that support structure because I didn't have that balance. I didn't cultivate those relationships, right? And I think that's forward thinking, but I think that's a consideration, right? It's like if you don't have that balance and something goes wrong, health-wise or business-wise, what have you got to lean back on?
And, you should be hustling towards your interpersonal relationships in the same way you're hustling towards your business.
Right.
You should be creating systems, calendars that put your family as the priority, right? Like, as you're going down this road, the same effort that you're putting into creating a structure that makes your business thrive should be the same effort you're putting into creating a structure that makes your family life and friend life thrive, right? Your personal life thrive, which is you're not going to grow let's say you got this new product you're going to release. Well, that product isn't going to release without time and effort and putting your heart, soul, passion, and effort into it. Okay. Well, neither is on the home front. Those relationships aren't going to develop if you don't have balance and put the same time, effort, focus, and purposeful growth into the relationships.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with saying like, hey, I have to, I got to work on my marriage. Of course, everybody does. Everyone has to work on their relationships. And they got to put the time in. And what does that bring on the back end? Well, it's just like your company. It brings this lifelong and long-term standing like relationship that has gone through the test of time, that is there for you in the hard times. And that same kind of quote unquote hustle needs balance.
Right.
And it needs balance in the fact of, creating the same kind of systems in your family life.
Those are all great points, but before we move on to blunt force fact number 3, the last point I wanted to bring up was just the fact that we're getting older through this as well, right? And it's like, I know that I don't feel the same way I did when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 30s. I'm in my mid-40s, right? And I'm doing the best I can, trying to be healthy, trying to be well emotionally and physically, but at the same time, like, I don't have the same energy. And it's like, you are only young once. So, like, when you have that strength and energy and focus, use some of that for your family building and your relationship building and enjoy life a little bit, because when you get older, it's going to be harder to do some of those things, right? You don't want to miss out on what life has to offer. What's blunt force fact number 3?
Well, let's to that point, let's tell our men, and if you are feeling low T, you should go to your doctor and get your testosterone level tested and bring that energy level back up. A little plug for testosterone replacement therapy. Not saying that we do, but maybe we do. Who knows, right? Hustle culture is a scam. Work-life balance is a must, which brings us to blunt force fact number 3, which is reflection is where the growth happens.
Right.
And I'm going to let you run with your analogy here because I think it's fantastic.
Well, so. Both Brian and I have been involved in competitive athletics our whole life, and we both at some point invested in, weightlifting and growing yourself from like an exercise perspective. And especially when you get into weightlifting in particular, like one of the things you learn is that you see people in the gym, they're working out, they're lifting weights. You think that's how you get bigger. And it is, but it's indirect, right? It's not direct. You don't lift weights and get bigger. What happens is when you lift weights, you're causing stress to your body, and your body breaks down, right? Your muscles actually start tearing apart. And what your body figures out, it's like, oh, if I'm going to be stressed like this, I have to grow these muscles. These muscles got to get bigger. So the growth actually doesn't happen while you're working out. And that's why there's a concept of overworking out. And that's whatever it is. It's over lifting, over running, whatever it is. All you're doing eventually, if you're just doing that without the time off to rest, you're just breaking your body down more and more and more. So it never has the chance to
grow
and improve and fix what you broke down. It's the same thing with our work. I know that we had a call. We talked about reflection. We talk about reflection periodically with our group, and this idea, the concept of take some time away from your business, step back, think about what you're doing really, really well. We want to do more of that. Think about what we're not doing well. Maybe we try and improve it, or think about things that we're wasting our time on, right? But you can only do that if you step back. And we actually brought up in our last call, we brought up the example of Bill Gates. Bill Gates has these week-long decompress weeks where he turns off everything, right? And he's had some of his best ideas. He came up with the idea of switching Microsoft into an internet-based company during one of those weeks. Or one of the weeks he came up with the tablet computer, which didn't become big until the iPad, but like he had the idea way before the Apple iPad became a thing, right? And it's like, it's only because he's able to step back from his company. He's going. It's only during the rest and the time off that he had those ideas and grew. And if you're not doing that, if you're hustle, you're never going to think about, what am I wasting my time on? What am I doing wrong? What are the things I'm doing well at that I should be focusing more of my time on? If you're not putting your energy into that reflection period and that growth strategy planning, then you're just going to run yourself into the ground. You're going to get worn down. You're not going to have the energy. You're not going to have the mind space to innovate and come up with new ideas. It's only during the time off that you're going to see your most growth.
Yeah, and I think, the growth-based call that we host every week I love it just from the standpoint of seeing what our clients get the benefit of. But even for you and I, we're forcing ourselves. And guess what? Guess who's on that call every week and never misses a week? You and I, right? Between the two of us, we're on that call every week. So what does that mean? That we are donating an hour every week to muscle growth, right? And letting and taking the step back, and we're analyzing things and focusing on growth-based tactics to look at our business from that 10,000-foot level and make decisions. And how many people are not doing that? The number's staggering.
Right.
The number of business owners that think that they know everything is crazy, right? And we work with a lot of companies. How many times do you sit down with someone and you're just talking to them and hearing what they have and any suggestion that you may say, hey, if you thought, they always have a reason why not, right? Why not? And you're like, oh, it's unfortunate that you've got it all figured out. It's unfortunate because the worst thing that you can do and the worst thing that we could do is the same thing is think that we know everything and we already got it figured out and that there isn't room for growth and reflection. You brought up Bill Gates. Everybody would say that Bill Gates, phenomenal. However, he's reflecting, right? We would all take advice from him, but he's reflecting. And I guarantee he's getting mentorship too in that process. And he's bouncing his ideas off people and getting feedback. So reflection's where the growth happens. It's our last blunt force fact about how hustle culture is a scam. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, I got nothing.
Awesome. I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.